Some of us are born to fight. These are the words of a true warrior, Seth Gehle. For nearly 16 years, Seth suffered unspeakable crimes and endured tragedy beyond comprehension. Growing up in a broken home filled with abuse and neglect, he found one escape that would eventually lead him further down the path to hell. Seth is here today to bravely share his story in order to help and empower others. And he wants everyone to understand the devastating aftermath common to millions of kids who are victims of childhood trauma. Grit, resilience, survival. These are a few of the words I want to describe Seth as. And he has a brand new book due out December 2nd. So we're going to talk about that. Strength Beyond the Shadows. And the website and everything will be in the body of this video, warriors, for you is Seth Gehle. That is Gehle. You can see it right on the screen.com. Warning, maybe a little bit tough what we're going to talk about, but I want everybody to know this is the reality. This is what creates change. And Seth bravely shares because he wants to educate, empower, and truly, what is our warriors hashtag? Community creates change. And that is exactly what we're going to do today. Welcome, Seth Gehle, to the warriors.
Hey, yeah, thank you. I appreciate you with the introduction, and thanks, obviously for you what you're doing, and then for everybody who's listening. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, but I couldn't do my job without you. And, I really do want to focus on presenting the male voice in all of this exploitation, trauma, sex trafficking, sexual abuse. It is very important because I'm not seeing enough of that. And we know boys and men get abused too. And we have to really start open and honestly talking about all of this. Let's jump right in. First, I want to thank you. You're an Army veteran. And I have to thank you for your great service to our country. Really, it's I'm just thrilled I can't say it enough. I'm just thrilled you are with me. I want to ask you, what was that like? Do you mind answering that? Being in the Army? Like, I don't know, how did it, what did you get out of that? Or what did it do to you? Or just what was that about? I'm always curious. Like when somebody goes through, I have not been in the Army. Like, what's that like?
hmm the Army for me was probably one of the best things that happened. I did it right out of high school, so I was 18 years old. I was actually 17 when I went to basic training. I went to basic training between my junior and senior year of high school. Went back and graduated high school, and then went full time in the Army a few years after that. Um, but it was the best thing that I could have done at that time because I was irresponsible. Had no financial literacy, had no idea how to really take care of myself, pay bills, budget, whatever. Had no real um, good income, I guess. And so I joined, and the Army took care of me. Um, Unfortunately,
Mhm.
I was dealing with a bit of a identity crisis the entire time I served. And we'll get into, obviously why, but I joined the infantry. I was an infantryman, and I served my first few years at Fort Stewart, Georgia, and then eventually ended up going to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, with the 82nd Airborne Division. Been all around the world, um, a bunch of different countries, just seen a bunch of different things. Finally got my bit of a combat deployment in 2019 to Afghanistan. Came home from that and got out, and it was the best thing that I could have done to set me up for where I'm at in life, and I loved it. I mean, I love the military. I love being in the Army. I miss it today. But there was when I had my children and I went to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That was good for me. I was like, okay, I'm ready to get out.
Yeah. And also listen, once you have a beautiful wife and two children, correct?
hmm
Things change, the whole dynamics of everything changed, but it sounds like that was a really good, it's good to hear a good experience. And it was kind of I guess, a refuge for you at that time, to set you on the track you're on today. So again, that's wonderful to hear as opposed to a lot of the stories we hear that don't turn out that well. Listen, this is your story to tell. So I want to jump off with your childhood, wherever you want to begin with that, whatever you want to tell us about your childhood, where you grew up and what occurred, whatever.
hmm Yeah. First off, I'm an open book, so you can ask whatever you want to ask. And I encourage the hard questions. It's not going to bother me. If you're curious about something, somebody else is likely curious as well. So, um, yeah. I'll give it to you quick. Try to cover 16 years in a few minutes. Um, it started off quick. By my mom had me and my sisters, and when I was about, she had us back to back years, so we're all 1 year apart. And when I was about maybe 2 years old, they get into a fight. My father stabs my mom behind the ear, nearly kills her. So he went to prison for, I don't really know how long. I just don't have any memories of my father growing up, for the first probably 7, 8 years. I ended up meeting my father later in life, and I met him in prison. We went to the jail, the county jail, to go see him during visitation hours, and so that was actually that's my first memory of my father, being about 6, 7, 8 years old, and seeing him in the jail, and trying to talk to him through the plexiglass and stuff like that. So
Mm.
um, those first, 5, 6, 7 years of life, I don't remember them being horrible. They they probably are worse than what I can remember. Your first 5 years, it's pretty hard to remember anything, especially if anything traumatic happens. Unfortunately, I got due to the nature of my mom raising three kids by herself. We were always at different babysitters' houses. We were always bouncing around. There was a lot of instability. Things just you're just automatically set up for failure when you are living that kind of life. So ended up getting molested by a babysitter's son who was maybe 15, 16, 17 years old. I don't remember how old he was. All I know is he looked like a grown man, and I was like 5 or 6. I looked like a little boy. So that happened. I reported him to my grandparents. Actually, my grandparents said something to the family. They likely denied it. I don't know entirely what happened, but we did end up going back to that house, and those people still babysat us for a while, or for a lot. They were probably the most common babysitter we had, and I don't think the abuse continued. I think it only happened a few times when I was that age. But yeah, it happened, and then by the time I was 8, 9, 10 years old, my mom slowly, just over the course of time, became more abusive, more violent. Just she was drinking and smoking all the time, smoking weed, drinking, always had people at the house, always had different boyfriends, was always getting in fights with her boyfriends. And because of all that, I found places outside of the house to hang out, and would end up meeting a man who was in his 30s through a mutual friend who knew him. That man's name was Armando Vasquez. He was this big Hispanic guy. He's like 6'5", 380 pounds, and he was incredibly kind, smart, funny, enticing, I guess. He loved video games, pizza, and football, and I did too. And so started hanging out with him. Basically every weekend he would come and pick me up, take me back to his house. We'd hang out, play video games, and then after a few months of the grooming process, he began to sexually abuse me, molest me, and that continued for the next from the time I was 10 until I was almost 16 years old. Pretty much every single weekend, I was at his house. Probably, I don't know, 300, 400, 500 occasions of abuse took place between me and him, because it became just this like weekend ritual. I would go to his house, and I'd meet his family. I'd go to his house or his family events with like Memorial Days and 4th of July and Christmases and Thanksgiving. I knew his mom, I knew his sisters, I knew his whole family, and he was like the younger brother who he's in his 30s, but he had this little boy as a friend. Nobody ever said anything. Um, at the same time, all of that was happening Monday through Friday. I was at home with my mom, living the normal life, and my mom became addicted to crack and cocaine, became very abusive, close hand punching, fighting me and my sisters. And so 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, kind of dealing with this at home. There was a lack of security in the house. Our house, we lived in a bad neighborhood. House was broken into several times. While we were there, and my bedroom that I slept in had a 4 foot by like 3 or 4 foot hole in the ceiling. Up in Ohio in the dead of winter, you're sleeping on a thin little mattress that's on the floor with a thin blanket. It's just, it was absolutely miserable for most of my childhood, but especially the years, probably like 9 to 13, um, 10 to 16, somewhere in there. It was just a miserable time. My mom was taken away from me when I was 12. She ended up stabbing her boyfriend over some drugs, and I was there that day, saw it all happen. She got arrested. There's a big. She set a bunch of stuff on fire in the front yard. She gets arrested. Kind of a long story, but I bounced around several houses for about 4 or 5 months, and my grandparents end up finding me. Um, and so they find me right after Christmas, I believe, and they take me in and they asked to adopt me. I said yes. So they started the adoption process. While I was with my grandparents, I told them, I said, "Well, hey, I have this friend that I want to go hang out with," and it was Mondo. And so initially they were like, "No, you're not going to hang out with this guy." But then I defended him, and they were like, "Okay, well, we just want to meet him." So they meet him. He makes them laugh and smile, and then he had become a part of my family now at this point. So now he was coming to my house for Christmases, birthday parties, Thanksgivings, and he was beginning to groom, everybody in my
Mm.
family now, basically me and my grandparents. Um, After a couple of years of that, I was about a month away from being 16 years old, and after almost 6 straight years of being sexually abused, at this point I had been, everything that you can do with somebody sexually had happened between me and this man. To include, he raped me. I was 13 years old the first time he raped me, and then it happened several more times, between 13 and 16. And I was about a month away from being 16 years old, and I finally made the decision to report him. So, that's a whole long story, but I go home one weekend and make the decision to do it, go down to the hospital, handle the whole thing. Um, about a month or two after reporting him, I didn't really hear anything. All I heard was he accepted a plea deal. So he was charged with 11 felony counts, and then he was offered a plea deal and only took four of them. So he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for uh, about 10 years of abuse between me and another little boy who also came forward. And um, that was back in 2011. So he would be free today. Fortunately enough, he died in prison about a year before he was supposed to be released. And that was the end of his story. That was back in 2019 when he died. But yeah, I mean, my childhood, like trauma, I guess, ended around that time. 16 years old. I never went to any therapy, never saw any doctors, never, did the typical like crime victim services route. Like nothing
Mm.
like that ever happened for me. I kind of just was like, okay, like whatever, it's over, keep moving. And kind of to wrap it all up, I didn't realize how much it affected me in my adulthood until about 9 months ago when I really started to tell my story. I read a few books and started understanding the psychology of childhood development and trauma and neglect and those things. And once I learned a lot about the psychology of trauma and neglect, of what it does to a child, that's when I realized how much it affected me in my adulthood. And now I'm able to tell my story in a way that, I say this humbly, but I've not heard anybody else tell it um, this way. So, matter of fact, and just clear, articulate, and a way that people can actually understand what's happening and understand why things happen. And so that's what I'm doing now. And, I just wrote a book. My book will be out December 2nd. And my book kind of details my life, over the course of 30 years. And, now I travel and speak and try to advocate and share the story and help people, overcome their trauma, their adversity, really anything in life. It doesn't have to be, related to
Right.
child abuse. I can talk to anybody about doing anything hard in life. You know, since my childhood, um, I think it's, going through hard things sucks. Going through traumatic situations sucks, but I don't know that it's impressive. I think anybody can kind of go through some hard times or be addicted, or I think anybody can go through those things. But to come out on the other end as a functioning
Yeah.
human being, and then continue to challenge yourself the way that I have. With I, run a bunch of ultra marathons. I just ran a 100-mile race earlier this year, and still doing the things that I want to do to make sure that I'm challenging myself and pushing myself to be an example. I want to be somebody that somebody can look up to. I don't want to be like Seth was, abused and he went through all this trauma and neglect, and
Yeah.
now look at him, he's like the shell of a man. I want to be somebody who's like, I want to be like that guy because he does cool things. And then when they find out where I come from, they're just like, holy shit, okay, if this guy can do it, then I can do it. And that's just the truth. So,
Yeah. I mean, you opened up so many things. First of all, I'm going to say to you, parents are supposed to protect. So I'm so sorry. I have 3 children, grown adults now, but I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. No child deserves that. And if people call that judgy, I don't care. No child. We are here to protect our children. I have a couple of questions. Where is your family now? So you have siblings. What about your parents? Where is everybody now?
yeah. So I'm kind of glad you kind of brought that up. Parents are supposed to protect, but there's a lot of it is almost just as bad to be neglected as it is to be abused. And so people ask me a lot, like, you must hate your parents, or, your mom deserves prison, or your mom is the devil, and your father is a waste of space. And it's like, no, I don't think any of those things. I don't think my mom was a horrible person. I don't, she made a bunch of mistakes. She did a bunch of horrible things, and she treated us the way that she should not have done. But I do not hate my mom. I don't have any ill feelings towards her. She likely, very likely, has a long history of trauma and neglect and
Yes.
abuse. And she was once an innocent little girl. She was once an innocent baby, and something happened to her to make her act the way that she did in
Yes.
her adulthood. And then you partner that with having 3 kids, and then the father goes to prison for almost killing you. You're like, how would and I'm not asking you, but like for the people who would say like, oh, she's the devil or she's horrible or whatever, well, how would you handle that situation? um, so all I would say is empathize with people,
Mhm.
because there is likely a reason why they're doing something that's outlandish. And it's probably it's not what's wrong with them, but what happened to them, like
Yes.
what happened to that person. But furthermore, maybe what didn't happen for them. Maybe my mom didn't have a father, maybe my mom didn't have a mother, maybe she didn't have support and resources. And so anyways, I digress on that point. But I don't have a relationship with my parents. I say all that just to say I don't have a relationship with them. I've
Mhm.
tried. They have, I've tried to help both of them get out of their, I would say, victimhood. Um, as I've done in my adulthood, I realized that I had a victim mentality for a long time, and I blamed the world for everything, much like they do. So I've tried to help them. They have basically refused to do anything to become better. Therefore, they're just not really a part of my life. I'd love to have the relationship, but I can't have relationships with people that are just toxic and negative and drama, all of those things. I don't deal with any of that. And my sisters are basically in the same boat there. I would love to help them. I would love to provide and do the things. I'm in a place now in my life where they could live with me for free and I could take care of them. But um, there's a level of responsibility that comes with that. And I have 2 kids. I can't risk losing my life and my family for their mistakes. So unfortunately, I can't do that, but I would. I just can't, because of how they act.
Now, Seth, how'd you get so smart? Because I'm very serious about that. First of all, I have so many questions for you, but um, I want you to understand I'm not blaming like your mother at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
I'm just like always protector, right?
Hmm, hmm.
And I'm glad you brought up circumstances. She may have been abused. We don't know, right?
Hmm.
We don't know what's in the background for a lot of people. That's where we always have to step back. And once you're in that hole, because we do a lot of this work at the Warriors, it is very almost impossible to dig your way out once you're
Yep.
in that hole. And having 3 kids, one on top of the other, basically impossible.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of the work we do at the Warriors. We're really trying to change legislation, where resources go to people who really need it to get them out of the hole, not throw the Band-Aid on, right? Give them a few bucks. It's get them out of that hole. But that's a whole nother program. How did you know at age 5 to even say something um, that you were being abused? Because most kids never say, they never say a thing. And then again, you're a teenage boy and you're going to report this. So you knew it just wasn't right. Did you just think this is how life is? But you knew to report it, and you knew at 5. What do you think? Do you remember anything going through your head? Obviously, you knew it wasn't right.
Yeah, I had really good grandparents, and we went and saw my grandparents a lot. My grandparents, they knew that our life was not good, and so they would do a lot of like the birds and the bees talks, and um, different things like that. They would have those conversations with us, and that's when I told my grandparents, and
Good.
they were, yeah, they did the legwork that of protecting us on the weekends, and so that's what happened. Is I told my grandparents. Now, when I was 15, what actually happened was the day before I reported him, I was at his house and I had a younger friend with me, and this guy made a joke about my younger friend, and he used to make the same jokes about me, and so I knew it wasn't a joke. I knew he was serious about doing what he was joking about, which was a sexual act. And so once I realized that what was happening to me was about to be perpetuated onto my younger friend, that was the final straw for me. So I don't even know that if my friend would not have been there, I don't know that I would have reported him, because I was more concerned about my younger friend than I was myself. I had already been through it, gone through it, dealt with it. It was the shame that I carried, and I guess I was okay with doing, not really, but the shame of carrying that weight seemed lighter and easier to deal with than telling people what happened to you and what
Mhm.
you did, because when you report somebody, like when I did for this guy, I would have to admit all of these horrible things that I did and all of
Right.
these horrible things that he did
Mhm.
to me, and I would have to admit the sexual favors and things like that. And I was scared I had AIDS. I was scared I had HIV. I was scared people were going to think I was gay. I was terrified of all of these things. So that's why I didn't want to report him. But once he started to, I could see he was grooming my younger friend. It was the final straw for me. So I went home and reported him.
Wow. Okay. I'm so happy you're speaking up as a man about this, because you mentioned earlier, uh, you don't hear anybody. There's nobody out there like you speaking like this. I have to agree with you. I'm telling you, there is nobody out there. I'm all over the place across our country. That's why we need you, Seth, to speak. And I'm so happy the book's coming out. Um, and with your permission, I'd like to make it our Lynn's Warriors December book of the month. When we do our newsletter, we send that out, and then we want everybody to read this reality of what goes on, but how you've really been able to handle this. Because most people we deal with, and you probably know this, Seth, they just need that compassion, or they need a hand on the shoulder, or if I can do it, you can do it. Just simple, basic things. So we've got to get you out there to talk to everybody. And I know you do some of that. I what about schools? Have you been into any high schools? Do they allow you in to talk about this? Because the school system is very, I mean, I'm in New York, it's difficult anyway, everything here. Do they allow you in? Because it is a necessary voice right now. The kids have all these devices. They're seeing, oh, I want to get to that. Lots of pornography, not even their faults. We have all the studies directing dangerous algorithms. What about schools? Have you been to any? Because this is what we need. We need to get in to intervene with all of this.
Yeah, yeah. Schools are a great point, and I tell people why it's so important is because when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, if I would have had a man who looks like me, like a
Yes.
strong, powerful man, walk into
Yes.
school and say, like, "Hey, these things do happen because it happened to me, and if it's happening to you, like, please step up and say something. Go tell somebody who you can trust because we're going to protect you." I did not have that when I was a kid. We had people come and talk to the schools, but they had never been through what I had been through. They had never experienced anything that I had experienced. Therefore, I never listened to anybody. There was nobody
Mm.
that ever looked like me. Anytime there was a man that would talk about anything, he was likely this shell of a man who, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but he just wasn't inspiring. There was no man that ever walked in to talk about anything that really fired me up. Like, okay, I need to take care of myself and do the thing. So I want to talk to schools. I will talk to every school in the world. I talked to one school here in Georgia and spoke to a class of 45 kids. Um, when I got done speaking, six of those kids were in tears, and they came up to me and they were hugging me and they were thanking me. A couple of the kids had endured the things that I had went through. A couple of them had similar situations, not as intense. A couple of them had friends who were going through what I was going through, and they knew it. And so they're asking me like, "How can I help my friend?" Okay. Now here's the twisted part. There's a guidance counselor in the room, and that
Yeah.
man, I was supposed to speak to another full class, 30, 40 kids. Everybody wanted to come to my class because I was like the army guy. There was a bunch of breakout
Right.
sessions. Everybody wanted to come see the army guy talk. Um, the next class, that guidance counselor went out in the hallway and actively pushed kids away from my classroom because of my story. So the next class, I talked to like six kids. Now, if I talk to a class of 40 kids and six of them come up to me and they tell me that how thankful they are that I was there to talk to them. Imagine what happens when I talk to 300 or 500 or 1,000 kids, right? So, and I say this humbly, like I'm being humble, but it's such a serious, it's so
Yes.
heavy on my heart that I will, if you give me the opportunity, I will change the course of somebody's life just by sharing my story and helping them understand that they're not alone and that there's a way
Mhm.
out. There's levels to this thing, right? So the schools are very hard to get into. I just spoke to my high school, to the teachers up in Ohio last or 2 weeks ago. I spoke to all the teachers. That was tough to get into because they don't want to talk about it in
They don't wanna talk
schools.
about it, right.
Yep. And they tell me like, we don't want to traumatize these kids and, we don't want to talk about it to them. And it's hard for them to hear it. And I say, yeah, it is hard to hear it. And imagine going through it. And then imagine going through it and then nobody wants to talk to you about it and nobody wants to like come forward and say anything, right? So then you're just going through it all alone, like I was for 6 years, you know, showing up to school every single day, and people are like, "Oh, how was your weekend?" And it's like, you really want to know what I did this
Right.
weekend? Um, so I feel for those kids because they're in those schools alone, fighting for their lives, and teachers are mad at them because they can't pay attention and they can't stay awake, and they've got ADHD and ADD, and they've got bipolar disorder, and it's none of those things. They are dealing with an immense amount of trauma and neglect and
Yes.
abuse, and they don't know how to handle it. So that's why somebody like me needs to step in there and let these people know, like, I was that kid, and here are the things that helped me get out of it and become the man that I am today.
Yeah. We have to, we're gonna help you get into schools. And probably not New York City because they won't even let me, Seth, into the schools to talk about digital safety,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I mean, I've never been abused. I've never been sex traffic, labor traffic, all the things we work on. I am just extremely passionate about it and don't want kids going through all of this, anybody going through. So if I can use a media platform, get the word out there, work with survivors, that's what we do. But we got to get you into the schools. I mean, I can clearly see this. So we'll talk about that. Let me ask you about, I heard you say, I was watching some of your things and you brought up pornography. Pornography is another, how that affected your life, something people really don't understand or want to talk about, how it really does impact a young brain. And I've had adults my age say they saw things as children and things were mild then, believe it or not, compared to the pornography now is violent and vicious and horrific, right? And they say they never unsaw what they saw decades ago. What do you want to weigh in a little bit about pornography?
Yeah, I mean, I was exposed to it when I was 5. So even at 5 years old, basically what happened with me was my mom was at work, and so we would be at home all day alone, and she had a collection, and we put it in the VCR, and we plugged it in and watched it, and then we took it out in the neighborhood and showed all the kids. Um, and it's infatuating, right? It's captivating. It's like watching a train wreck. You can't look away from it, especially as a little kid. And so you're just trying to figure out what's going on, and then what's worse is that you start to perpetuate those things, right? So I did at 5, 6 years old. I was actively trying to have sex with a girl in my closet who was my age, and
Right.
as it grew into as became a young man and I got a hold of a phone and I was allowed to have a phone. Well, every time I would talk to a girl, I was just hyper like sexual, just I was consumed by it. Like that's all I wanted to talk about. Even in my adulthood, I'm very lucky that I had a little bit of control, to not push that limit too far. I never
Right.
did anything like criminal, but I was very just aggressive in the sexual nature, and that's another thing I would love to talk to young men about and young women is not making yourself a target. And like for men, I would say, you have to respect her, right? Don't make yourself a
Right.
target. If she's drunk, don't talk to her. If you're drunk, don't talk to her. Don't text about these things. Don't, it's just not worth it. Like if you're because but that's what it does to you, right? When you watch the porn, especially as a young man, it turns you into this. You have this,
Yes.
misconceived notion of what those relationships are and this entitlement. That's what I had. I thought if I took a girl out to eat, she owed me sex, and that's just not the case. But I was all jacked up with my, you
Well,
know,
you're explaining exactly what we deal with now, that the pornography, we are seeing across emergency rooms. We work with Nurses United Against Human Trafficking. We are seeing girls as young as 9 and 10 showing up with strangulation, okay? Because the boys are seeing this in videos that they have easy access to. And the other thing is the girls think this is acceptable from a boy because, that's a whole nother problem. They think this is, they're seeking this love and this attention. And they're also a lot of girls watching pornography and they think that's okay. So you describe that children are replicating this behavior. And I mentioned 9 and 10. It used to be a few years ago, we'd say 12, 13. The ages are
hmm
getting younger and younger and younger. But
hmm
then that goes into another show about, access to devices, controls on devices, what kids are watching, who they're talking to. So we'll leave that for a minute. I want to ask you about this because I thought this was very interesting. I saw that you tweeted recently. What is the value of impact on life? It is more important to have a million views. Are the blue checks more valuable? What about thousands of followers? How much do these things mean in comparison to a single life that can be impacted by your story? I thought that was such a powerful statement because, I even Seth will I'll be like, oh, here's a woman unwrapping a hair dryer. I kid you not. She's got 1.2 million views.
hmm
Here I am sharing a study for parents, grandparents, whoever the caretaker is. I get 7 views.
yeah.
So I'd like for you to tell us about that tweet.
You know, I think it's sad. First off, it's sad that there's somebody who's a mentor of mine. His name's Nick Lavery, and he told me to. I asked him about this when I started. I said, "Hey, do you ever pay for ads, or do you ever pay for anything?" And he said, "No." He said, "We don't run any kind of ad revenue. We don't see the value in it." And we didn't. That was the end of the conversation. I didn't even dig deep into it. I was like, "All right, Roger that. Not going to do it." Okay. Um, as I've gone on over the last 9 months talking to people, what I've noticed is there are a lot of people who I can go on my Instagram right now. I can pay $50, and tomorrow morning I'll wake up with 150,000 followers and a blue check. And
Yep.
every one of my videos will have thousands of views and 503 comments. Every one of them will have 503 comments, and they'll all say the same damn thing. And unfortunately, um, so there's a couple levels of this, right? Unfortunately, people see that and they think, oh, this person is valuable because they have the clout per se, right? Um, they don't realize it's robots just doing this. These are
Yeah.
just bots that are just generating their traffic, right? Now, and what's I don't know which one's worse. The other side of that is, like you said, somebody unwrapping a hair dryer. Well, there's also on Instagram if I look at a video of a girl in the back of a van explaining her size preference and what she prefers in somebody, that video will have millions of views, thousands of comments, and if I watch it for just 5 seconds, my feed will be taken up with these girls in the back of these vans being interviewed for our website,
Mm.
right? If
Yeah.
you go to Tim Tebow Foundation, okay,
Yeah.
Tim Tebow is one of the most popular people in the world. His foundation that is explicitly to protect and save children gets almost little to no engagement. This is Tim Tebow we're talking about. Like this guy is very 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 renowned, and his profile about saving children gets little
Yeah.
to no engagement. And then it's like, why? What's going on? It makes you wonder: is the system blocking?
Rigged.
And yeah, is it? And it makes you wonder, like, why are they hiding it? Why is this content being hidden? Furthermore, it hurts me because when people look up me, they'll see Seth with 3,000 followers and 20 likes on his videos and 50 views, and he's like, oh, he's not big time. We don't need him. What they don't see, which is the point of this that post, was when I leave a speaking engagement and a man calls me and tells me, I went home for the first time in I've been married for 40 years, and last night was the first time that I've ever told my wife anything that happened to me. You know, they don't see that impact. I don't have millions of
Yeah.
followers. I don't have thousands of likes and the blue checks. I don't have those metrics. The metrics that I do have are: you saved my life. I can finally talk to my wife. I feel seen. I feel valuable. You explained everything that happened to me. I have those type of metrics. But that was the point of that post. And it's
No, but
heartbreaking to
that's
see.
I'm pointing it out because you're a warrior.
Hmm.
I'm in the same boat with you. I know what we do behind the scenes. I know the impact. Um, I don't need all the checks and likes and all that. I bring it up because I don't know if this is the right word in this movement, right? I'll just call it a
Hmm.
movement. I see so much stuff that's not even right, because
Hmm.
we're based at the Warriors Facts Studies. By the way, I was just fairly recently at a Senate roundtable with Tim Tebow. Passionate, well-known football, right? It should be millions and millions. So
Yeah.
that really tells us everything. That tells us everything right there. That doesn't matter because we at the Warriors, if we help one person a day, that's our goal.
Hmm.
That is our goal with that. But I want to share that tweet again and again that you did because we have to start getting our kids into that. The good news, there's a new study out that the alpha generation, maybe you saw this or heard about it, born in 2010, so they're basically babies up to 14, they are very slightly starting to reject a lot of this stuff, which is great,
Hmm.
right? The pendulum, which you're always preaching, is slightly starting to swing back. Um, we promote books like hardcover books. Get off the devices 1 hour a day. I mean, studies of kids on devices 8 hours a day. This is out of control. Um, so I like what you wrote with that. It's very impactful, and I don't see anybody writing anything like that.
Hmm.
Seriously, all the groups I'm in and government and this and that, nobody's writing a tweet like that. So we're going to be sharing that one. Let me ask what about your family? What's the impact? What do you want to share about that with all of this? How do you explain your kids are young, but obviously they're going to hear all about this, know all about this.
Yep. First off, my wife is she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And since I've gone on this little journey in the last 9 months, our marriage is we're like a newly married couple. We've been married for 8 years, 9 years, something like that, and our life is just completely turned around, and I love it.
Oh, good.
I'm able to say nice things about her, which is it sounds weird, but that's a very hard thing to do when you have a jacked up brain. My children, once again, this is my mentor, a good mentor of mine, Nick Lavery. I'll quote him again. Um, for reference, he's a Green Beret. He got his leg blown or shot off in Afghanistan, I believe, and he was the first Green Beret to go back to combat as an above the knee amputee. He's an incredible guy. He wrote a book, and I read his book, and then reached out to him, and all of the things. And now he's like a good mentor of mine. But I heard him because people ask him, well, what do you tell your kids about your leg? And this is what I tell people now is, Daddy wrote a book, and my daughter asked me, like, what's your book about, and I tell my daughter, well, Daddy's got to go to a speaking engagement. I got to go, here, I got to go speak to people. She's like, well, what are you talking to people about? And I said, well, I helped them. I tried to help them overcome things in their life, like they maybe have had some troubles. I'm trying to help them be better. And so she asked me about my book. And when the time comes to really have the conversation, one day when they're old enough to read the book, or to know what happened to Daddy, because they will eventually know, the conversation is, somebody hurt Daddy, but Daddy's okay now. And now Daddy uses that experience to help other people become stronger. Daddy's not hurt or broken. Daddy is stronger now because I've gone through these hard things, and that's that conversation with your children. They don't need to know the
Yes.
explicit things, at a young age, but it's okay that Daddy, they ask me about my mom and my dad sometimes, hey, Daddy didn't have a good mommy and daddy, Daddy had a hard time growing up, but it's okay now because now I get to take care of you, and I get to love you, and I get to help other people become better people. That's that conversation.
That's wonderful. Because parents a lot say to me, I don't know how to do it. I'm like, you never over explain, age appropriate, like just give them a little bit. Do not be over explaining everything.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, you're very smart, Seth. You got it all going. How did the book come about? You wanted to write a book. Somebody approached you. You approached them. I'm always curious because it's hard to do a book these days.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was 10 years old, I knew I would write a book one day. I knew that I was going through things in my life that was not normal, and that I would write a book. I said, I will either write a book, or I will be on a stage somewhere telling my story and saving lives. I knew it at 10 years old. I had this vision. I just like this. I knew that was going to happen. And
Yeah.
a few years ago, I won an award from the National Association of Home Builders. I went out to Las Vegas and received this award, and I was standing on this podium, accepting the award and talking to these people in the crowd from Home Depot and the Home Builders Institute and all these other companies. And they all looked at me, and they're all applauding me for winning this award, this national recognition in construction. And the whole time, I just felt like, man, you guys have no idea what it took for me to get here on this stage to win this award. And once I reached that level, I knew it was time to write a book. And so I said, okay, let me sit down and do this. So I sat down and wrote the book. Um, and if I had not already been through enough, that's why I ran the 100-mile race. I needed to do something in my life that would take me to a level of pain and discomfort. When I ran that race, it took me 38 hours. And, um, 60, 70, 80 miles in, all I could think about and tell myself was, okay, I went through 16 years of hell. Like, this is just running. I can take another step. And so when I wrote the book, it's 60,000 words. I can do this. If I can get through all that shit in my life, I can write a book about it, and I can do it. And it was time. It was once I had done things that were admirable and inspiring and
Mm.
impressive, that's when it was time to write the book. When you're 30 years old and you write a memoir, some people might be wondering, like, what the hell do you have to say at 30 years
Yeah.
old, about your life? And so I had to do some things to get to make my story impactful. So that's why I ended up finally doing it.
Wow. Strength Beyond the Shadows, due out December 2nd. Available. It'll be on, I guess it'll be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It'll be on all the outlets. Also, you've got your website. Um, Finish us up with you do motivational speaking. I'm sort of stuck on the 100 miles. I'm thinking about it because it takes a lot for me to do 5 miles, but that's okay. I'm getting better. You do that on one shot. You do like 100 miles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's really, I don't know what to say. That is fantastic. That, because we just had the New York City Marathon. I don't know, it was about
Right.
2 weeks ago or something, and that's like 26.2. That's
Yeah.
nothing compared to 100 miles. Wow. So you're going to continue doing that, running these marathons, these
I have
Ironman. I don't know what
ideas.
they're called. Ironman things or
Yeah, they're called ultras. So it's funny. People ask
ultras.
me. I've never ran a marathon. I've never. The first race that I ever did was an ultra, which was 31 miles. So I've done about seven of them now. 30 mile, 40, 50, 60, and then I did a 100-mile race. I want to do them, but I want them to be for our cause. So I have different ideas. I have some different ideas of what I would want to do. Um, but I don't really have a reason to do them just for myself. I want to, if I'm going to do them, I want to do them to
Yes.
raise money for something or support something.
Well, there's a lot of ideas for that one that can go into male education or, I don't have to tell you
Yeah,
because you're
yeah.
you're full of great ideas. I can tell this already. What's next for you? Just continuing on all of this on this path. We definitely have to get you into schools. I keep talking about it here in New York and across the country. It's more, especially male oriented, because our young men need you. They're not,
Hmm.
let's face it, they're not going to listen to me, right? I
Hmm.
can talk to them blue in the face. It's not resonating. They got to hear
Hmm.
from you. So what do you have on the horizon? Anything you can share with us? I mean, you got a full plate right now and you've got your wife and your kids, but anything we should know about besides all of this? How about a movie?
Um,
How about a movie on the book?
yeah, if anybody wants to shoot one, let's do it.
No, I'm very serious. Like that is a direction you should go in after this because um, there's a lot of mistruths about a lot of things. I'll just put it that way. And here you are sharing bravely your lived experiences, I should say. Again, it's about empowering. It's about you could do it, I can do it. I'm also stuck on you said 6 kids approached you in that class. There could have been
yeah,
16. They just don't come forward, right? 6 is
exactly.
a lot, right? Because obviously you can gain their trust pretty quickly
Yep.
after they're hearing your story. So what's on the horizon? What else is going on?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep plugging away. I'm down for anything. I would do a documentary, a movie, whatever anybody wants to do. I will do whatever it takes to elevate the message. It's not about me; it's about the rest
Yes.
of the world. But I think I'm in the right position to do it, and right now
Yes.
is the perfect time to do it. The only roadblock I have is just the reach. It's very hard to get in contact with people. It's hard to, I email probably 100 people a week, trying to kind of get my story out there. It's not sexy, it's not fun, and
I
so people
know.
don't want to talk about it. Um, they don't want to think about it, and so that's been my biggest roadblock. But what's coming up is, I've got a speaking event next week in Baltimore. After that, going out to LA for a couple days, and then coming back here, and just I'm going out to I think it's Amfest in Phoenix with Seek and the
Yes.
Mom Army and Dad Army people. So I'm going to go out there with them in December. I plan to have several hundred books out there to sign and sell while I'm out there. But next year I've got a 911 summit that I'm speaking at in Kentucky. Um, so I'm just traveling and trying to keep spreading the word and keep speaking and looking for conferences and events and things like that to keep. I want to help people just get through their problems, their adversity, and their trauma. So
Yeah, you're an excellent warrior. Finish us up. I have so many ideas for you. Well, we'll talk about that later, but we love our Sikh Smith and our mom and dad army. And she has a lot going on too. So I'm glad you're going to be part of that. You'll have your books, you'll sign, everybody will buy them. But remember, tell them buy a copy and buy
yeah,
one for a friend. I'm like, you
yeah.
buy a copy and you buy one for a friend. This is what we do at the Warriors. We promote that way. Finish us up. Final words for Warriors listening to you and saying, because I know what they're thinking already, like, wow, because they haven't heard this on the Warriors. They
Hmm.
haven't probably heard it anywhere because you pointed out media wants to talk about, I'm here in New York. It was nonstop Jeffrey Epstein. Lynn, come on the show for Jeffrey Epstein. Now it's Lynn. Everything is Diddy.
Hmm.
You know, they don't want what I call the nuts and bolts of reality of what is truly happening and escalating as you and me are sitting here escalating, right?
Hmm.
I can't keep up with the facts and press releases I get, from Washington and our state capital, Albany, on these types of things. Yet they don't want to talk about it, like you're talking about it, like I'm talking about it. So finish up. Give us some final words for our warriors listening.
You know, whatever you're going to do in life, like whatever it is, write a book, tell your story, live your life, don't tell your story, whatever it is, you have to do it for yourself. Um, I think I got stuck in a trap for a minute where I was writing a book because I wanted to be an all-time bestseller, right? And the reality of it is, it doesn't matter if I sell a billion copies or one. I want to just help people. I want to, and once again, kind of go back to that impact, right? So, I think anything you're going to do, I would never want anybody to hear my story, and because they're not comfortable with it, with their story or sharing their story, that they feel, less valid or whatever, right? So I would never want anybody to hear me and be like, oh man, I wish I could be like him, but I just can't. And so therefore I'm not, you are just as strong as I am. We are no different. We've all been through some hard times. Everybody goes through hard times in life. Adversity is going to hit you, whether you like it or not. If you have been through it, you can get through it, right? If you've been through hard times, you can get through hard times. If it has not hit you yet, then get ready. And the only way you get ready is by sharpening the blade, doing the things that's going to prepare you for adversity, being mentally sound and physically sound, and those kind of things to prepare you for later in life. So
That's what and I also think, listen, we live in a new country. I think so. New world. Everybody can do something, right? Maybe it's not write a book,
yeah.
but
Oh,
it's new. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has the capacity. This is what we try to teach, of doing something, and also of doing something for somebody else,
but
right?
here's one more thing that's been on my mind. It's been on my heart today. Is we have got to stop fighting hate with more hate.
Yes.
Okay. We just, okay. So there's a new president. There's a whole
You
bunch of
can
new
say
things,
it.
right?
You can say it here.
Well,
Say it.
look, no, there's a new president, and there's a bunch of people that love him, and there's a bunch of people that hate him. Okay. Um, Listen, getting on social media and like shitting on Democrats and making fun of Democrats and making fun, like, I don't know
Horrible.
how.
Horrible.
There's what you are just as bad as the person who you disagree with. Okay, so for the people that are out there, that are fighting for something, you don't win with hate. I'm just saying, like, guys, you win with love. And if that person hates you, you just love them a little bit harder, or you ignore them. But this like constant bashing of our own country and our own people, um, it's just sickening, and it hurts me to be in the space of wanting to help people and being involved with communities that want to help people, and all they want to do is get on social media and create some sort of funny tag about making fun of people. It's like, you are not any better. I'm just sorry. Like, if you're going to do that, if that's what you want to promote, you're not any better. And so if you do want to be a better person, just be kind. That's all. Being kind is free. If you mind your own damn business, you don't got nothing good to say, then don't say it. You know, I think there's a level of like advocating and standing up for situations. And then there's this straight up ignorant bashing, name calling, blaming, that's just irresponsible and unnecessary. If you really want to make change, be a positive person. Don't get on social media and be this negative influence. So I'll get off my high horse there. I had to say that.
No,
That was
no,
on my
because
heart today.
I talk about that all the time. But again, getting that message to kids,
Yes.
because look, our future adults, our future leaders, the kids, we have a well documented youth mental health crisis in our country. We've gone through that COVID period, all the effects still from all of that going forward. Seth, a new study came out. 1 in 12, this came out yesterday. 1 in 12 kids are diagnosed with autism now in our country. Like, people should put the focus on, okay, how, why, let's get better. Right. Again, I
Mm-hmm,
like to say,
mm-hmm,
like, we're not just going to slap the band-aid on, like, okay, we got to get out of there. We got to prevent it and help those that are afflicted. Right. We don't have time, right? You, me, no, we're helping people. We don't have time for all of that. The
mm-hmm,
adults, hard to change their mindset. They're whatever they do, but our young people, our kids, those are the ones that we have to take care of and teach the way it is. And you know what? The American people have spoken. People have to move on. It's about what is best for America, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'll get off my high horse with that. And that's Seth. Seth, I don't understand that one. Like, because the work you do, the work I do, it's considered bipartisan. Like it doesn't belong to a political party, right? Everybody should be able to get on board with helping kids, talking about kids, media, everything to educate, make us better. I mean, don't get me started. China doesn't allow any, they shut down the TikTok after 40 minutes and their TikTok is all educational. Like,
Yeah.
so you know what? We're warriors though. And you are the biggest warrior. I am telling you, Seth Gehle, and we're going to help you. We're going to support you. We're going to do whatever it takes. We need your voice out there. I appreciate you so much. I will definitely have all of your information in the body of this video. I want to say thank you again for serving our country. Thank you for all you do. I'm going to keep thanking you. I can't help myself because again, Seth, I haven't heard your voice out there talking like this, right? And I mentioned before, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. I haven't been trafficked. I haven't been abused. And I now, as this adult woman, actually think how lucky I was as a kid because of how prevalent it is in our society. And I didn't know or experience any of that. And not on our watch. We are not allowing this to continue. So I want to say to you, you, sir, are definitely a warrior. And we can't wait to really promote your book, get it out there just in time for the holidays, too. And just thank you. Please let us speak again, Seth Gehle, because you are truly, truly just the finest example to especially young men and girls too. But the men need us. The boys need us. And promise me that we will speak again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Anything you need, just, you could call me, text me, email, whatever you need.
Thanks, Seth. You're stuck with me now. Get ready. We'll talk again soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Seth.